All right. Well, once again, thank you everybody for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us here today for the migration from Integration Designer 9 to 11. We're very pleased that you could join us today. What we want to do is give you not just an overview of what the programming differences are, but we want to actually show them to you live and show you what those differences are. But before we begin with that, what does this entail? What are we going to go through? And you can see the topics of conversation that we're going to go through today, and we're going to do this kind of uniquely. What we're going to do unique about this type of webinar is that the incomparable Vincent Bova is on with me today, and we're going to both kind of have control over the programming screen as we go through. Oh, we got to set that up and make sure and give you the ability to see both platforms side by side and how they're different and where the features lie. So it's very unique, and we're going to work off each other and kind of show you different ways to do it. I want to make sure that you are aware of some of the requirements of Integration Designer 11 right off the bat, so that you're not stuck downloading the new version and going, well, now I can't even use it. We want to make sure that you have all the facts straight out and go over some common questions and get right into some of the programming. And of course, all along the way, if you do have questions, please make sure to check out the post them in the question and answer section of the software, not the chat, but the actual question and answer section of the software. So let's keep going here. Quick introductions for those of you that don't know me. My name is Tyler Nelson. I'm the National Training Manager for RTI. I am joined today by the incredible Vincent Bova, who's head of our sales engineering team and dealer experience team. And he's got vast amounts of knowledge in regards to Integration Designer 11 and was on the front lines of the not only development but testing of it and working through all these things. So there's a number of other ways that we can help. And we do have some other participants from RTI from around the world that are going to be on the call today. So as I said, if you do have questions, please post them in there. But let's keep going here. One of the mistakes that a lot of people think of is that, well, this is a completely new platform. And for the most part, it is. But one of the unique things about Integration Designer since its inception to today is that it's been in a constant state of evolution. It's in the CEDIA Product Hall of Fame because of this, because of the ability for a software program to evolve over time and incorporate numerous and adaptable features within it that are totally unique to the industry. And as we've continued to evolve these different types of software platforms, we've made major jumps and major strides in the ability to control things through automation events, through straight line control, to customization. And one of the things that RTI has been so well known for so many years is that customization side. And if anything, as we've evolved, we've enhanced the features of that customization side without taking a lot more time out of your busy schedules to do that. And we want to make sure that you're aware of what those features are within Integration Designer 11. Integration Design, we boast that it's the fastest custom installation ever, and it really is. This new programming platform that we've created creates a fast preset template that is, again, fully customizable, but also has the ability to have generation of commands and macros and even variable feedback options on it already pre-programmed for you so that it's faster. So you don't have to waste the time going back and forth and figuring out, oh, is this done or is this not done? We've incorporated our entire driver library into it. We've incorporated this incredible feature called System Manager, which allows the actual system to monitor itself over and above just simple straight line commands and base level macros. We've created some exclusive device pages that are tailor-made to specific devices to make that functionality and that user experience even better. And the best part of Integration Designer, we haven't changed at all, is that it's a singular programming platform, which allows you to work with any size and scope product or project that you may be having, whether it's in a commercial vertical, the hospitality vertical, the residential vertical, wherever you play or wherever you have your business plans and you're going forward with, we offer a singular programming platform that can cover them all. And Integration Designer 11 is the next evolution of that software. And really, when it comes down to the brass tacks of this, what do you need? You know, in front of you, when you're ready to program it, what do you need? Well, we highly, highly, highly recommend that you buy a new machine. And I know a lot of you go, well, hold on now. Do I have to do that? No, of course you don't. You can see the minimum requirements on there. But there are some things that are so advanced within Integration Designer 11 that we do recommend that you have a machine that has Windows 10 as its native OS to start off with. You'll be able to capture all sorts of new features that previous versions haven't been able to. And a couple of quick notes: Integration Designer 11 does not run on Apple and Mac machines. ARM processors are not supported. x86 and x65 emulations aren't supported. You know, Apple Silicon-based Mac computers under virtualization aren't supported. We want to make sure that you're well aware of this first and foremost right out of the gate, so that if you do have questions going, this is a Windows-based platform. So you're going to want to make sure that you have that Windows 10 platform running full bore before you download it and start playing with Integration Designer 11. Now, questions that come up all the time. What are we looking, you know, what do clients, or what have dealers been coming up with, or what kind of questions have they been coming up with as we've launched Integration Designer 11? And one of those is, can I run 9 and 11 on my computer together? And yeah, you certainly can, but we would highly recommend that you use Integration Designer 9 only for old project maintenance, and Integration Designer 11 for all of your new projects. This will help expedite your learning process. This will help make sure that you are understanding the concepts and that you're getting those projects to that next level of control and automation. So we're not taking it away. We're making sure that you can have both on your computer for the time being, but it is highly recommended that any new projects you do in Integration Designer 11 right out of the gate. The second thing about this is there a steep learning curve? No, there really isn't. In fact, you know, when it boils down to is being able to adjust your programming thinking and understanding base concepts that are very different in Integration Designer 11, but not so far-fetched, where you're going, wait, where did that come from? We want to make sure that you have all the tools necessary. So you'll notice on RTI Excel that there's training modules on there. We're developing more of them that involve any new product launches that are done in Integration Designer 11 in terms of driver development, making sure that you have sample files available for you in Integration Designer 11 to help you with the learning curve. And can you convert your ID9 projects to 11? And the answer is no. These are two completely different file formats. And if you try to do that, it will require you to do numerous reprogramming aspects on it. You're almost better off just reinventing the wheel if you're going to convert a project from a 9 to an 11. Once you see what we're doing today, it won't take you that much time to do. I promise you that. Now, the other question I get though is, well, what about all the graphics I created in ID9? Can I still use it? You know, I've created buttons, I've created backgrounds that I've used in ID9. Can I use those? Well, absolutely, you can use those. Those are a different story. We're just talking about the overall program itself, the project.rti that can't be converted to that project.apex or for Integration Designer 11. So keep that in mind as well. The other couple of questions that we do get: do I need to update firmware? Yep, we talked about that. Make sure to download, or excuse me, do I need to update firmware? Each and every time? Yes, make sure that all the devices that you're going to be programming with Integration Designer 11 from, new and old, have the latest firmware versions on them to be able to take advantage of all the features that Integration Designer 11 does have. Do you have to upgrade? No, you don't. But I would highly recommend you do. You know, as we continue to evolve the new hardware and software and drivers and all that kind of fun stuff that we're writing, we're going to be starting to write those with a lot of the features only being available in Integration Designer 11 in the future. So keep in mind, not right now, we're writing drivers in both platforms for the time being, but that will start to change. So please make sure that you do get on board with Integration Designer 11. And eventually, yes, support will be completely discontinued for Integration Designer 9, just as it is for all the other, OS systems out there that, Microsoft will send out a notice, hey, Windows 98 is no longer going to be supported. You better upgrade, or, whatever the next OS might be. So you want to make sure that you start that process. And do we have resources to help? Yes, absolutely. Of course we do. You know, the dealer website has a ton of information on it about learning more about Integration Designer 11. So if you go under resources and Integration Designer 11, there's a learn more about ID 11 button on that page. And, you know, you can go to the training on there. You can see the training calendar. You can take RTI Excel classes. You have recorded sessions like this. You have webinars. You know, we want to make sure that you have all the information you need. Obviously, it's an older screenshot, but want to give you an idea that we are constantly updating that training curriculum and making sure that you have all the latest tools at your disposal so that you are successful each and every time. So all that aside, let's get to the brass tacks of this, the programming side of it. What does this look like? How does this play into what I'm going to be doing as an integrator? What are these differences? You know, how we get questions all the time. Well, I'm used to doing it like this. You know, how do I do it in Integration Designer 11 like this? You know, so Vincent and I are going to kind of work on showing you how to do this. And I'm going to do this in a very kind of unique way. Give me 1 second here to close that window.
You're good.
You're good? Oh, perfect. I was just going to ask you. And then I want to make sure that let's see. I want to make sure that you can get control too, Vincent, here. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Turn off the video here. And I may have to give you control every once in a while for some reason. All right, there we go. Perfect. All right, so let me know if you have access, my friend. So, all right, perfect. So it looks like it's one or the other on this one for us. So one of the nice things about Teams. So when it comes to, you know, the two platforms themselves, let's kind of take a real quick review of it. Most of you that are on this call are very familiar with Integration Designer 9 and how everything is laid out from the Windows standpoint, where you have your workspace on the right, your library browser on the right with all of your IR, RS-232, drivers, objects, and bitmaps tab. And I don't need to go through what each one of those are. And then you have all of your common toolbar buttons on the top, your drop-down menus, etc., that are available for you on the top, as well as the bottom area for your toolbar buttons. And that hasn't changed in terms of the toolbar buttons or the drop-down windows on here. But what you'll notice in Integration Designer 11 is, although we have our workspace, we also have additional windows titled Layers, Button Properties, and then this looks fairly familiar. It's the almost like the library browser, for lack of a better term, but it's where you will find the different tags, which we'll get into. The macro steps, the bitmaps, buttons, and objects are all going to be in this window here. And very similar to Integration Designer 9, where you can make windows bigger, smaller, and all that kind of fun stuff. We can do that here as well in Integration Designer 11. And we'll talk about these windows a little bit here as we go through, but I want to just give you a quick overview of the lay of the land. Now, when you start to build a program within Integration Designer 9 and 11, you may say, okay, well, what I'm used to doing is we've created a file, and then I go to my add workspace, and I'm going to add in that processor right out of the gate. So there's my control processor, an XP3, and we'll just title it XP3 main processor. Hit enter, as you're very familiar with doing. Close that window out real quick. So there's our processor. In Integration Designer 11, you'll notice that right out of the gate that we have a global area and sources. In Integration Designer 11, the layout of the workspace isn't a device-based like it is in Integration Designer 9. It's room-based. It's an area-based setup hierarchy, programming hierarchy. Now, why would we do something like that? Well, as you start to develop a project, as you would say going through a walkthrough with a client, you're going to notate things in the certain areas. You know, the family room is this, or the lobby has this device in it and needs to be connected by this. And it creates for a much more an easier organizational structure for you. So we've done something similar with the workspace for that reason. and a few other reasons that we'll get into as we go along. But what you'll notice within the workspace is as we start to add in devices, they'll be divided up into those areas and placed in those areas, but with the ability to place them in the global if necessary, if we deem necessary. So we added the processor in already. With the workspace itself, if I click on the Add Workspace Item window here, you'll see it comes up with global, and there's our processors, not unlike what we had there, but it's limiting it just to those. So unlike with adding a new device in ID9, I have to sift through and find which one I need right out of the gate, and which is not overly tough, but you get the idea is that it's there. This has sifted it down to this area. So if I were to add, say, an XP3 in here, it's right there, XP3, main processor, and I hit Add Processor. As soon as I do so, you'll notice that the window still remains up. It doesn't close out right away, which is great. And it's listed it under the global area, as it should, because the main processor is the brains of the operation. It has all of the capabilities that need to do for the automation and control and all that kind of fun stuff. But what you'll also notice now in the workspace, unlike this Add Workspace window in Integration Designer 9, where this is just devices, right? Now in Integration Designer 11, we've broken that up into rooms, controllers, drivers, Z-Wave, infrared, RS-232, page sets, and bundles. So you can build your entire project and put everything in from this window, and it's not going to close on you right away. All right, so if I needed to add a single room, and what we're going to do with this example is we're just going to build a very simple single room area that has, a basic, watching a movie and adding a couple of drivers in, very simple, but the amount of time we want to make sure we cover as much as we can. So let's hypothetically say we're going to just do the bar. Well, I add in the bar and it immediately posts that room into the workspace here. Right, and there's my controllers, sources. Integration Designer 11 classifies anything as a source that is a driver, IR, RS-232, and even page sets. Those are all considered sources because we have this ability with System Manager to utilize those in the activities and that we build under those sources so that it can monitor what's going on. Okay, so now with this Add Workspace item, we would go to the controllers. Now here are the controllers. Well, if we go to our ID9 and I needed to add a T2X, I can click on that T2X, no problem, and it asks me how are we going to communicate. In this case, we'll do Zigbee and we'll name this T2X. But notice that there's not a room, so I better make sure that I put T2X bar in there, because if I add another T2X into the mix, how do I know which one is in which room? So make sure to name, obviously we make sure we name them for as such. And then it brings up the page wizard right away to add all the necessary pages for the device. Let's close this out for now, because I want to show you in here that if I add the T2X, I can select where I want it to go and live. The basic rule is that the T2X is going to go into the certain areas where it actually resides. In this case, the T2X could go into the bar. So we hit next, and then it asks us, okay, well, you created that. Do you need any pages? Notice that we've already added in the weather driver in for us. And of course, you don't have to use it, but you certainly can if necessary. And then a home page. I don't need to add those in. It's going to do it automatically for me. I can deselect it if I don't need them. And then the page template. Do I want Coral, which is the brand new, incredible, highly functional template that we do have, or Obsidian, an older base template? In this case, I'll keep it Coral. And then the list menu, list or button menus. And we'll get into the facts and features of that and what those offer. But the beauty of the list menu is it's going to give us a list of all the different activities that can be done in that specific room, like watching a movie and or a button menu could do that as well and have the ability to have those activities listed as well. So in this case, list menu, T2X, we'll do T2X bar, and I hit add device. Now notice as soon as I do that, it doesn't close it out, it keeps it open, and there's my controller. So if I needed to add another device like an iPad, I certainly could, or a phone. So if we add an iPad in, I'm going to actually put that in the global area because I want the iPad to be able to access all the different rooms as well as an individual and control an individual area once I select the room. And simply by selecting it and placing it global gives me that opportunity. So I select that, add it in, and now again, I can choose my options, and you can see what those all mean in the additional trainings that we do have. And I select add device. So you can see the difference already is that I'm adding in the specific RTI controllers for where they belong versus just adding in the devices. Vincent, anything to add on this before we move over to
Yeah,
drivers?
I just want to make it clear that when you add a controller in ID 11, like whether it be in the global area or in an individual room, you're actually giving it a job to do. You're actually explaining to the software how the remote is being used. By Tyler adding that T2X to the bar, he's confining it to all the shared sources and any sources you put in the bar. By putting it in the iPad in the global area, Tyler is telling the software that this iPad should be making room selections. Now, the software is smart enough to not force you to make a room selection if you only have one room in your project. But you could add other rooms later, and mysteriously, a room selection menu will automatically build itself and program itself in the software. So you're not just adding things to the software, you're giving them jobs to do.
Perfect. Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, all right, so we've added in a couple of these devices in, and we're looking, and we go, okay, well, we've got, we need to start getting the T2X ready to go, or maybe I want to add in that iPad into this mix as well. So let's go back to add the device in. We'll find an iPad. Where is it listed here? Under apps. Okay, so there's our iPad. We'll add this in. It's iPad, family, whatever. And press OK. It'll add it. I'll close this out real quick because we won't need it, but you'll notice that there it is. There's my iPad. All right. So again, you'd want to make sure that it's labeled correctly. Now, you'll notice the next tab in the workspace is drivers, and very similar to Integration Designer 9 is we want to add these in. But the beauty of it is that they're going to be in Integration Designer 9. We open that window up. We have to go to the drivers tab, and we have to add them in. Now, here's the hard part, is that you go to the word add, and you have to have downloaded all of these drivers onto your computer already from the RTI website and be able to make sure that you have the latest version. And if you're not sure if you have the latest version of them, you have to go to the RTI website. You have to check to make sure you have the latest version of it, all that kind of fun stuff. So I can click on this and go, okay, 1.1 is that the latest version? I'm not sure. I haven't used the Honeywell in a while. So then you have to go to the RTI control page and check, right? Well, in this, if I go down to say the Yamaha Avantage receiver and it's 1.6, I can add that in, no problem, right? Well, and let's add in a couple, or we'll add in two more into here. So let's go to the RTI music just for fun. Let's see, where's RTI music? It's RTI music 1.7. And we'll add in the weather driver because we're going to need that as well, because it's I want to make this as similar as we can to, okay, there's the weather driver. I want to make these two as common as we can. All right, so I've got those three drivers in, pretty straightforward. And then we've got our configuration settings on the right-hand side. Now, in Integration Designer 11, if you go to the drivers tab, our entire RTI driver library is already integrated into the system. So I don't need to go and download this for the latest version, because every time I open up Integration Designer 11 and I'm connected to a network or an internet connection, it's going to check to make sure that this is updated. And anytime we do updates to Integration Designer 11, it will update it. Even better is that when you have opened up a project that maybe you did a month or two ago and they want to make an adjustment to it, or maybe there's a new feature, when you open this up and you add in a new driver into here, it will actually have a little exclamation point that gives you an indication that this is an old driver and needs to be updated. So case in point, real quick, if I grab let's see here. Here, I'll just add this one in just for fun. Oh, no, not that one. Sorry, I apologize. RTI Music 1.0. So, yeah, music. I add that in, okay? And what you'll notice, But what I want to show you here real quick is that this, if I were to close this out, it would actually post that it would need, oh, there it is. The exclamation point would come up and say, hey, by the way, this is out of date. Do you want to update this? And if I select driver update, here's your version, the new version. I press OK, and boom, on one device, it's updated. I go back to the driver info just for your information, and there's 1.7. So that's all built in. So you don't have to worry about adding those in one by one and making sure they're updated. We'll do that for you. So let's add in one more driver here real quick into the system. Let's do a Yamaha Avantage receiver. And as again, we'll go into we won't go into too much explanation, but one of the coolest things about this is that you can identify specific aspects of a driver or a device or a source and place it exactly where it belongs. Case in point, if this Yamaha receiver was living in the bar, I could put that zone 1 into that bar, or a specific aspect of that driver into that bar to only control those certain areas if necessary, so that I don't have a huge driver that's going to have all the commands in it and all the features and all that listed in here. I can simply go, okay, what do I need here, and place it in there. So if I'm only using zone 1 in the bar, that's great. I can add it in. It says, do you want to create a page? Nah, I don't need a page there. But I also can set it as a room audio source. Now I'm going to say yes on this. And most of you have seen the training to know that this is actually going to create the volume controls for me automatically, because we are designating this as our main volume control. So let me just change this to Yamaha real quick and put add device. And when I do so, you'll notice that it's in there. Now, the other cool thing about this, if I want to add another RTI music player into the mix, right? Or maybe an additional zone, and I have additional rooms as they've grown, I just can go in here and I can click on the plus button and see that the players can be assigned to where they need to go, or I can put the secondary players where they need to go. So if I grab player 1 and say, okay, you're going to go into the bar, boom. Player 1 is in the bar. Okay, and then if I had a second room, it would go into player 2 could go into that room, or they could go into the global area, whatever the case may be on this. But you'll see that it's a dynamic based listing in here. Okay. So the configuration, the adding of drivers is much easier for you. Plus, what about the configuration on this? Well, let me back up real quick. I'm going to close this. We have our configuration set up right here, where I need to actually go in for RTI Music as an example and set the hardware serial number, right? So I need to find that on the back, and then I need to find the IP address in the network, which again, not a big deal. But here's something cool. In Integration Designer 11, the RTI Music, if I go to the driver properties, it'll automatically populate that information if that device is online for me. So I don't need to go and do that. These are the types of features that that will allow us to create a faster integration for you. So that information is already will post in automatically for you, and you'll see more and more drivers that will have those types of features on them, so that when they're plugged in and working, you'll be able to just pull that information in and not have to make lists of all these different names and numbers and all that kind of fun stuff. Okay. So the configuration makes life a lot easier in terms of getting it set up. Oh, you're right. I'm going to delete this. You know what? I'm going to delete this real quick. I think I added the wrong driver in real quick. Give me one moment here. Let me re-add this in just so that the pages are added in. I added a really old version of the RTI Music, so the original one didn't exactly have all the features that I want. I'll just keep it. Oh, dang it! I did it again. Well, we can go back and add those in. 1 second, folks. I apologize. There's RTI Music, player 1, global. I want the pages in there. Okay, perfect. All right. Excuse me. All right, so we talked about that. Now, in Integration Designer 11, you're going to want to add in the all the sources right out of the gate and put them into the proper rooms, just like we talked about with walking the room. So if I go to, say, my infrared and I need to add in, say, a Blu-ray player, like a Sony Blu-ray player as an example, and I need that BLU. Okay, there's my Sony Blu-ray player that's going to be living in the bar. Hit next. Do I need a page? Yes, but I can also port route it right here as well. Perfect. We'll add that in. Again, pages are done, all that kind of fun stuff. And let's do a Samsung TV. Most of you have seen this example before, but just to give you an idea, oh, the port name's already done for us. So we don't need to go back and do any port route or naming on the processor. Do I need pages? Well, that's up to you. You can create them if you'd like. In this case, I'll just add the device in. Okay, so now I've got my IR devices in there, and they're set as sources because, as Vincent said, the process or the system is smart enough to recognize what's going on here, and this plays a major part into System Manager. And then, one of the unique things about this is that we can also add specific page sets into the mix. So if I wanted to add a page set, say like a please wait page, that is accessible to all my devices, all my RTI controllers, or all my macros, I could actually add something like a please wait page in the global area once and have access to it from everything else. So there's my please wait page. I'll add that in real quick. All right, I'm done adding all the devices in. So let me close this out. Now on the Integration Designer 9 side, we talked about adding the drivers in, which was great. But now we need to add in that Blu-ray player, right? We need to make sure we have pages for this, because if I look at, say, a page for the T2X as an example, the only thing I have for a home page right now is a blank home page, right? And I know when we added in T2X initially, it came up and it said, and it had the listing just like this with all the available pages that we could add in. So you would probably go through and add those in right away. Well, a nice thing about Integration Designer 9 is that you do have the ability to do that, but the templates on this, based on the device, are fairly limited of what you can select from, for one, and they're a little archaic, to be honest with you. But let's, we'll go ahead and we'll add in the home page, even though it's going to add in pages that we probably don't need. So we're going to have to go back and delete those. Let's see, I'm going to need a DVD Blu-ray page. I'm going to need a please wait page. I'm going to need an RTI music page. Let's see, what else? A weather page. Okay. I think I've got most of them in there, and if we need to, we can add some later. So there are all my pages, which is great. Now let's go through and delete what we don't need. So there's this homepage that's blank. We'll delete that. The video games, we don't need that right now. We've got our video sources. Okay. We probably don't even need those because we're going to be small. So in this case, I'm going to actually delete both of those pages and just have my home page that'll go to watch a movie and go to my DVD page. And there's please wait, or listen to music. And that'll go to my RTI music page, which is great. So I've got all of those in there. And my weather page if I need to be. Now, keep in mind that most of this stuff is, it's done kind of for us, the base template for it, and which is great. But the problem here is that if I look at something like the DVD page, I notice that, well, I don't have a play button command. So I need to go over to my IR library here, and I need to select my new remote. And as most of you know, you find the Sony Blu-ray device that you might be using. I'll just grab this one for the sake of argument. I can assign the numbers automatically, which is really nice. Okay, done, no problem. There's my play button that I need to drag and drop on, pause. Most of you are familiar with this basic straightforwardness on here. Now, if I happen to, I left it as default, so if I need to port route it, no problem, but I might need to make a change later, so I have to select them all. Point is that this is a drag and drop mode to program this. And with Integration Designer 9, doing that can be very, very tedious to what you're working on. So we've added those pages in. Oh, wait a minute. Well, keep in mind that we still have those, but we haven't done the iPad yet. So we would need to go in and do all those pages as well and add all the necessary pages in for the iPad as well into the mix as well. So you can see that there's a little more time consumption needed in there. Okay. Now with these, as you go through and start to build up these different projects and and add these different devices in, you're used to adding in those products in and divide and maybe using merge page or import and all that kind of fun stuff and importing configs, which is great. But one of the things you'll notice immediately here with Integration Designer 11 is that if I go to, say, the Blu-ray page and go to the T2X, all of this has already been programmed for me. We've used auto programming to go ahead and map all the commands right to the specific buttons. Here's the other thing, is that when we added the source initially, if I go to the IR properties for this, we selected the output port already on that process. Well, you'll notice that on that T2X that I was just working on here, that when we were dropping them in, right, it was still on button default or unchanged. And if I needed to change those, or if I need to assign them, I assign them here and then drag and drop them over. But if I had forgotten to, which I did, I would then need to click my select button, go through, and change the properties of those specific buttons in terms of the output, on the or the IR routing, and select which port I want it to go through. Again, not a huge deal, but it's another step in the process that wouldn't necessarily be needed. Okay. Now in Integration Designer 9, when we're looking at assigning and drag and dropping commands on, what if when we're ready to create our macros to, say, watch a movie, well, general thought is that you could create it on that singular button, and because it will live on the processor, it would enact there. So you could create it here, and we could create a macro on the button itself. Most people who are well versed in Integration Designer 9 have created most of their macros under the system macro so that they have access to it from a variety of different devices, which is great. And you certainly can do that in here. So you added system macro, right? We title it watch movie, and then we create the macro and we add in the necessary commands. And what do those commands look like? Well, we need to get the Samsung TV powered on, right? So let's add in the power on into the mix. Okay, there's the power on. We need we got to change the remote now to the Sony Blu-ray player. There's our Sony Blue, which is up. Okay. Not sure why it's just open. That's odd.
You have to make sure these things are routed too, because that's a drag.
Yeah, right. But I'm wondering why that's the only code on there. I'll choose another code here. That seems odd.
Some of the code sets are a little wacky.
So let's go to, yeah, exactly. So port 2, just for fun. Oh, there's our power. That's power toggle is not a good example, but everybody gets the idea of putting on the commands, right? So we put on the commands, then you got to put in your time delay of whatever that might be. And then you're going to do your routing of, say, your driver. So a driver command for your Yamaha, right? We're going to make sure that's powered on as well. So we'll probably put that up top. So there's our power on command for the Yamaha. Then we're going to change that and put the input, and we're going to change the main input on here. And we're going to change the input to HDMI 1. Okay, we'll put that under here. Probably should put the IR command for the Samsung. Where's that Samsung? I'll just grab, let's see here. There we go. Okay. I know it's not the same one as what, oh yeah, it is. All right. We gotta remember.
Well, you're highlighting a major sticky point for ID9 is that, unless you have your own code sets that are 100% verified, it's very difficult to build with the confidence that everything is going to be, you're going to have discrete codes and you're going to have the right commands, and the person who learned them in correctly. There's a certain level of trust there. With ID11, our code sets are canned. We actually pay a vendor to create them with real information. So if there's a discrete code missing, chances are that code set doesn't have a discrete code.
Right, exactly. So we've created that system macro here, which is great. And now we need to have this access. So I'm going to right click and create a macro on this button here. And I'm going to add a please wait page as we normally would, right? Because we want to use that please wait page on the T2X, no other device, but just the T2X. And I want that T2X in there. And then I want it to go to the DVD page. So there's my DVD page. And in between those, I'm going to put the system macro. There's my system macro, watch movie. Perfect. Okay. So there's my basic activity, right? The client touches this button, it goes to please wait, launches the process, the system macro on there, turns everything on. And when that's done, then goes to the DVD page for which or Blu-ray page. Oh yeah, we probably should rename that too, right? So it says Blu-ray. But yeah, the idea here is that was the base process. In ID 11, what we want to do is we want to take advantage of the system manager. So we go to the specific room itself that this activity is going to happen. And we say, okay, I want to do an activity here. And in this activity, let me make these windows a little smaller here. We have activity name, source, or enable, source type, room, source, and activity name. And these are divided by audio and video sources because we want to make sure that System Manager knows what devices to turn on, what devices to turn off. So let's make that watch movie one, just the same as we did right here for the watch a movie. So I'm going to change the activity name because I'm going to have that automatically populated to watch movie. And in the button properties here, and this is very similar to what we did in the system macro, is you'll see that the selection events are what will happen when the client selects a specific activity. So what does that entail? Well, the same thing as what we just created. Activity start, that's going to be our please wait page, right? So we're going to start off with that please wait page and add that macro step into the mix right away, right? So we have the please wait page link, but what you'll notice here is that I can select from any of them in the global area or in the T2X area on here. So I want that global please wait. So I only need to add that please wait page once because I can access it. The other cool thing is that unlike Integration Designer 9, I can have it based on calling controller or all controllers, which means that the calling controller is whichever one is initiating this activity is the one that's going to flip to the please wait page. Versus in Integration Designer 9, you have to do it for each one. And if this one isn't on or that one's not working, then it won't. So, and then the same thing here. And most of you have seen the process here of adding the different commands. So the room on, well, that's where that driver command is, right? So we're turning everything on now, just like we did here with the button properties. So we would add in the specific commands for turning on the devices, putting on, the command. It's just a command. There's my driver. There's my main power, and it's on. Video on, same basic concept. Command, find my Samsung TV. Let's find the power on. And there it is. And then my source would be the Blu-ray player, same basic thing. Real quick here, power on. And then activity selected. This is where the routing will generally take place. So we add our specific commands in. So I want the Yamaha Avatosh to go to an input, and that's going to go to HDMI 1. Notice how this is all straightforward so that you have an understanding of what's going on here. And then the Samsung TV, obviously that's going to be input. And again, I'm just doing this fairly quickly. And then the driver command itself, or I'm sorry, the please wait the time delay that we also added into here is also important to add in. So there's my time delay. And again, we'll throw that wherever we determine an activity ready is going to go to the Blu-ray page. And then the deselect would be the inverse of this, right? Well, the cool part about this is that with this activity created here, my devices all have access to the bar room activities. So my iPad that I have here in Integration Designer 11 also has full capability of pulling in and initiating that activity, similar to this, but in the case of Integration Designer 11, the activity I've made here is all laid out right here. So I don't need to put anything on the button necessarily. I could put it all right here. The other part about this is that if I am going to have, say, just multiple activities in this area, well, System Manager will monitor what you've turned on here and make sure that they don't turn it off. For example, if I had something similar for, say, watch TV with the Samsung TV, right? Well, and I wanted to create that activity, I could do it very similar to what I did before with the watch movie in terms of the selection events and then the deselection, which would turn everything off. But what System Manager will notice is that even if I have, say, something along the lines of this command where I can copy this command and put it into the room off. Oh, that's a nice feature to have. Do we have that over here? Oh, no. Or even the video off, same basic concept in here, is that what it will do is it will monitor this and know that even if I switch to watch TV, it won't go through the full deselection events and turn it off the receiver. Or if I go to listen to music, if I want to play music, it's knowing that, oh, it's also copied that command, by the way, that it won't have to do that. The only way we could do that in Integration Designer 9 to have that monitor, one of the only ways was with internal logic or flags. And you would have to set those up for each type of macro and do polling on those flags each and every time. So I literally would have to say, okay, if I wanted to do something like make sure that the receiver doesn't turn off if I'm going to listen to music, I need to create a flag test. Where are my flags here? Flag. I need to test my flag for flag 1 name, which would be AVR power on, or whatever we might call it. And then we're going to test that flag. We're going to drag that up here. We're going to see if the flag is set. If it's not, then we leave it on or turn it on. Oh, I'm sorry, not power. Apologize. Drag it up here and then put the command in. And we'd have to do flags and then set the flag after we've done that. And if it's not, and then we turn it off if necessary in the power off sequence. So this is just powering on. Now it's powering off. I've done all that in the selection and deselection events. So it's a very powerful way to do that. Vincent, anything to add on there?
I think it's important to understand that with the reason why we're separating all these different functions in System Manager is because in this case, the bar, it's tracking whether the bar is on or off. It's building in tracking for if audio or video is on or off in the bar. So by using System Manager, not only will the software track what's going on and send things when it needs to send them, but even if you had 15 remotes in this room, you would only have to program macros once. Whereas in ID9, well, that's not the case. So System Manager is a great tool because of the intelligence, but also because of the efficiency.
Correct. So even further with this, as we go through and we start creating these, and we're creating the different types of activities and System Managers monitoring that whole process. In Integration Designer 9, we've already touched and gone into the user interface and started assigning commands and all that kind of fun stuff. We haven't done that in Integration Designer 11 yet. That's one of the major differences between these two is that, and close this out real quick, is that I don't touch the user interface until after I've created all of those macro sequences and made sure that the System Manager is set up. When you are ready to go in and make those changes or make those adjustments to the user interface or make sure that the commands are placed correctly, you click on those sources and you'll see them listed here and you can make those changes. But notice that these are already tagged and have the commands placed on them. For example, if I click on number 2, it's tagged with the number 2. This is almost like a label for the button, right? If you've got containers on a shelf, you don't know what's in them, right? They can contain whatever you want, coffee, tea, cocoa, whatever the case may be. But when you put a label on it, then you know what's in it. Same basic thing here is that we're putting a label on this button that says, okay, this is the number 2. And what does it contain? Well, it contains the command for digit 2. Great. Well, what else does that mean? That means that if I go to, say, the RTI panel, and I want to have another, this might not be the best example here, play. We'll use play. Go back to the T2X. If I go to play, that's tagged with the word play. If I go to the RTI panel, this is also tagged with the word play. But if I were to change this command to say play mode as a brief example, and the tag changes there. If I go back to the T2X and click on the play button, notice how that command is also changed. So it makes it easy to make a quick and swift change when you tag these buttons. These tags will align with the commands for both drivers, RS-232, and IR commands. Case in point, if I go to, say, the volume-based commands, notice that has already created, essentially, for lack of a better term, a punch-through key that we used in ID9, which, these are your global keys that don't have commands on them yet. We've already done that for you here because they're a room-based volume up command with the tag volume up. And that's going to be the case for the RTI panel as well. If I go to volume up here, you'll see that command is in there. And again, if I make a change, it affects both devices. Whereas if I wanted to make that command here, which is great, I can make that key global. I can assign that specific driver-based command into here. Let's see here. Where's the Yamaha? There's my variables. There's my volume up. Okay, I'm going to drag that. Oh, is it 2 decibels? Okay, perfect. Put that command on. Now, if I got to go to the iPad and do the same thing, granted, yes, they are all on the same page. They're done, which is great. But now I need to go to the iPad and do the exact same thing for the pages that I haven't even added in there yet. But get the base idea on that. So tags are a very, very powerful tool that are not available in Integration Designer 9. So keep that in mind as you build it, as you're building these out. The other thing that we want to highlight for you is the ability to say, okay, well, what if I want to have buttons that are available, in terms of appearance, based on a need or not a need? For example, I want to have them layered. Well, that is a feature that people, Integration Designer 9, when that was the only platform that we were using, dealers always wanted from us, and we're able to do it in Integration Designer 11 now. For example, if I go to the home page, or excuse me, the RTI music page for player 1, and go to the RTI panel, that's going to be, you can see that's kind of like a mess right now, but all these layers. Well, these layers allow us to create imagery on top of each other, which you can still do here, but I can turn off individual layers themselves so that I can see specific things. I want to see the keyboard. There's the keyboard. In Integration Designer 9, we would actually have to go in. We would have to change the properties of this. We would have to assign a variable and have the visibility for it based on, maybe that local flag or an internal variable that's going to pull something, or a driver that allows this, or even a flag. We could just say, okay, flag, maybe our power 1, just as an example. And now we want this image that will appear. Well, we need to show, okay, show me that flag, that variable. There it is. Well, you can notice that I can check all that right here simply by clicking and unclicking the visibility icon. So it makes it very easy for navigation and creation and flexibility in terms of programming. The other cool thing about layers is that we can share them. So I can make a layer very similar like the volume layer that's shared amongst all the pages on the iPad. So that the volume layer itself right here, right? These, what is it, 5 buttons here, 4 buttons in the, 5 buttons total, right? These are going to be shared amongst all the pages. So I don't need to copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. I share them and then make sure that they're inserted on all the areas. And then you can do priority level based on where it's placed in here. So if you want to make sure that this is always at the top, or if you were going to do a pop-up button, like the system is muted, you might create a new layer, put it all the way at the top so that it overrides every other layer on here. And when the visibility hits, it's on there. And even further with layers, just to give you a brief example, let me go to the iPad real quick. You go to the home page on the iPad, you'll notice that there's a layer that doesn't have any information. Well, that's the now playing layer. The cool thing about this is that we can actually say, well, I'm going to create this layer. I'm going to tag it with all sorts of information on here. Let me unlock it so you can see it. For example, this is a play. This is stop, all that kind of fun stuff. But what I want to do is I want it to map itself. I want it to map these tags to a specific area in in the programming or on for a specific device. So what I could do with the now playing is go up to the properties of it and say, I want you to pull information from RTI music, from player one, and press OK, and it will automatically tag those, populate the feedback variables on there for me as well, because they've already been tagged. And now I could do that layer on all of my pages if I wanted. I could make it a shared layer and then insert it on all of them if I so desired. Whereas Integration Designer 9, we would have to go through, and if we wanted to now playing like this on every single page, we would have to put that on every single copy, paste, and then there's no guarantee that it'll, you would have to assign the variables to each individual one of these every single time. Go into the properties of it. You have to find the variable, assign the specific variable for it. In this case, it's a text-based variable here, so that doesn't make any sense. But this one, as an example, we go to properties. There's our variables. There's our bar graph object that we put in, which is great, and you can do that. But notice that this is already done for us, and I would have to assign it in this fashion or copy and paste it from here if it's already been created and put it on all pages. And yeah, you can still do the visibility based on it, but with layers, we make it a heck of a lot easier. Vincent, anything to add to that?
Yeah, someone had a really good question. Kenneth said tags are great, but what about if you're using number pads for more than one device? For example, your Blu-ray might have a tag like play, or 1 or 2 or 3. Your cable box might have a 1, 2, or 3. How do the tags know how to align themselves with the right command, even though they're duplicated? So do you have to name the tag play Blu-ray or play cable? So the answer to that is no. We didn't mention that there's another feature that's correlated to tags. Tags are great for auto programming. And by the way, you could also tag your own templates in advance so that they'll auto populate all the commands. But the good news is that by using these macro levels that we haven't really went into, we like to train on those a little more, but by using these special features, you can determine how the relationship between the tag and the programming live in the project. For example, there's 4 different macro levels. So even though you have a 1 tag on the DVD and a 1 tag on a cable box, they're different sources. So you would use a source level macro. That will take that 1 tag and make sure it does the same thing for that source in that room on all controllers. So these macro levels all have different jobs. A room level, and I'll only go into 2 of them now, the room level will take that tag and make sure it does the same thing on all the sources in that room. We did that with the volume control for the Yamaha, or at least ID11 automatically did that. So now these tags can be duplicated from source to source and have different commands on them. So that is how you use the same tags, but have different functionality from source to source. Even if you have 2 of the same cable boxes, as long as they're in different, as long as they're different sources, which they will be, different routing capabilities and stuff like that, then they have different source level macros, even though they have the same tags. So that makes a lot of sense in the training, but you never have to work for tags working against you because they're going to work for you.
Very cool. And a couple of other quick highlights in regards to the customization size of things. I know we're running short on time here, but in ID9, if you wanted a different sized image, you're going to have it in a different sized image to be able to place it onto there, right? You've got a variety of different image sizes that you can do. And if it doesn't fit, well, then you need to make it as such. In Integration Designer 11, it's as easy as, grabbing an image and being able to have it automatically resize. So for example, I could take this, put it on there, and it automatically resizes. And in fact, I could actually make this bigger if I wanted, or smaller, based on up into the size it had, up into the size it came in. Or we could even create specific backgrounds. So if I wanted a background, right, for this specific bitmap area here, I can, in Integration Designer 9, right, one of the hardest parts about Integration Designer 9 in my mind when designing is that you've got all these different backgrounds, which is great, right? But check them all out. There's no easy way to sort them unless you know the template or the sizing. So you could do a background, say 640, or even take that out and just do 640. And there's going to be ones in the description that say 640. Okay, that's a little easier. But in Integration Designer 11, I can hit this little filter button and it'll filter it based on the selected device so that it'll show only the ones that are on there. And in fact, if I go to the T2X itself, just to give everybody an idea, I could throw that background on, no problem. And it will affect all the backgrounds in one fell swoop, right? Versus, or if I wanted to, I could actually create and go to the page properties and say, I want to make this a custom background. I want this image, the homepage image, to be different than the rest of them. And there I go. And you have the ability to create those very, very quickly and easily. So you could create individualized ones versus this one where you have to drag and drop it to each individual one. That's quite tedious on that side. So being able to have that background changeability was a huge request by a lot of our dealers. The resizable graphics, the huge ability. Excuse me. And we also mentioned before we log off today, well, before I move on, Vincent, anything to add on the graphical side of things, or do you want to take?
Well, yeah, I
control
think it's important to illustrate how you could resize those buttons right in the software, and also embed icons within them, for example.
Oh, sure. So if we were to take a button like, well, let's just take display as an example, and I'll pull this one out a little bit. And oh, actually, you know what? I'll do it like this. I'll take Blu-ray. I'm going to go to the text. I'm going to put this in the center of it. And then I'm going to find a Blu-ray image. BLU. There's my Blu-ray logo. I'll throw it right on. Oh,
it's got to be active.
Yeah. Properties. Throw this in there, and then move that image of the device There we go. And now I've got my Blu-ray logo that's been automatically sized for this. So it makes it very easy to be able to have that ability to add those types of images to these buttons and have them resized.
So not only can you resize them on the fly, but you can embed icons within these buttons so that you don't have to pull them out of the software to do it. Or overlap graphics, making them inactive. For example, if Tyler wanted to change pop-up menu to be a graphic instead of text, he could erase the text in there and then drag in a menu icon from the Coral template. So lots of ways to enhance your templates without going through a hell of a lot of trouble in the software.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, the resizing, the ability for you to, this has been so well received in terms of the overall customization. This takes it to a whole different level in IDO 11. So, and then the final thing I want to mention real quick is that, as you grow a project, right, you always will add more devices. When the client comes to you and says, hey, I want to add another device in Integration Designer 11, you have to build that device again from the ground up or import it in if you've used it before, which is great. And if you're well versed in doing that, you certainly can. But one of the cool things about, Integration Designer 11 is that instead of going through adding it in and adding all those pages again and putting the macros in or commands in and all that kind of fun stuff, you can actually just add it in to the project right away. If I wanted to add in, just say, an iPhone into the global area, or even let's do a KX3 or 4, into the bar as an example, and hit next and say, okay, here are all the pages that I want for this, right? And put it in. I'll just do a button menu as an example here and hit add device. You'll see that it adds the KX4 in, but even better is the fact that the KX4 itself already has those pages because we know what we've created here. It's already assigned the tags with those commands into here. And it has page links already assigned to these, for which we can also say, hey, in this video button, I want to have a specific activity selected, and you program that in, and lo and behold, it would rock and roll for you. So it's a very easy way to add a device and grow that project without having to reinvent the wheel. Anything on that, Vincent? Yeah, good on that.
Yeah, I mean that's a great feature. Like, so when you're adding controllers, really the work is done, and the best part about it is that you could also clone controllers. So for example, if everybody has an iPad, you could go over to the iPad, right click on it, and you could clone it. That's an amazing feature. And now let's call clone whatever, Billy's iPad or something, or whatever you want to call it. The beauty of that is that it won't require you now to go and maintain two different iPads. You only still maintain that first iPad, and it will change everything on Billy's without you having to go over to Billy's. Of course, you could duplicate controllers also if you have subtle changes, but that clone feature is amazing if you have 5 different controllers doing the same thing. Especially if you make a change, it'll do it in 5 different places rather than have to do it 5 times over. I used to have to when I used to program, I would do that all last. I would duplicate my controllers last, but it doesn't matter when you do it now. You could do it first.
So if we're working on, say, like a restaurant or something, and they wanted to have multiple, say, KX7s in the wall or iPads in the wall or something like that, but singular based control, we could essentially do 3 or 4 duplicates of that and have it all inside.
Not only that, and the macros will work for the respective controller. In other words, System Manager knows when you run those macros to jump to the respective controllers pages. Not, it's different programming now. Now it's all programming done in one single location that all the controllers can access and use based on their own pages. So it's a lot more power and flexibility.
Very cool. And again, it's not like we've taken things out of ID9. We've enhanced things. We've made them even better. In fact, we've always had the good old save system as and save all devices and, control S. Well, one of the things that you may or may not know is that in the latest version of Integration Designer 11, we've added in an auto save your changes for you as well. So you can enact that, and then anytime you make changes, it'll automatically save for you. Now, again, that's maybe not for everybody. Maybe people like to do parts of a project and then save it as a version, and then do another parts of a project, save it as a version. That's totally up to you, but doing this auto save will help tremendously as well. So keep that in mind.
Beautiful feature. Right. Really good.
So, with all these different things, and I hope this kind of gave you an idea of where things go. And I know there's a lot of other questions that will come up, as we go through, and, maybe we'll do some additional, we'll probably do some additional modules on certain aspects of them, and one versus the other, but wanted to give you an idea on the overall programming structure between the two so that you have an idea of, okay, well, if I'm used to creating system macros here and accessing them from a said controller here, how does that look in ID 11? Well, it's as easy as building an activity in that specific room, and then that activity will be listed automatically here. If you use list menus or if you're using button menus like the KX4, then you can actually have, excuse me, say an activity like this Blu-ray movie, where we create that macro for that room. You'd probably do a room here, wouldn't you, for this one? I probably would.
Yeah.
If we added any other devices where you select the activity, the current room, and player 1 or the bar itself, and there's our Blu-ray. And now all of a sudden it's going to select that activity, which we created here to watch the movie for that Blu-ray itself and go through the entire process. So there's not a lot extra that you have to do. You don't have to go back and forth from device to processor, etc. It's all done for you. Cool. So all these different things, again, this is just a small segment of all these different options for you. But, if there are questions, please feel free to, I know we went over, I apologize for that, but there's so much cool stuff in here that I really wanted to make sure that you had a good grasp of all these different features and functionalities in here that are so powerful for you. So if you do have questions, please feel free to post them in the question and answer section, or we can open up I'll unmute it and you're welcome to ask them live if you'd like, and we can certainly take a look at them. But from Vincent and myself, thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate your dedication to RTI and the brand. We have a ton of resources available for you. If you do have additional questions, please do not hesitate to contact us and let us know. But I'll go ahead and open up to any questions. If you want to talk, raise your hand and I'll unmute you.
If anyone has any questions on like how to do something in ID 11 versus ID 9 or anything.
And it can be an odd question. Feel free. We're happy to show you. We've got time to do it right now. So. You must have done a heck of a job. Nobody wants to ask any questions.
Okay, shy guys, that's okay. Of course, if you do have any questions, please email us and we'll be happy to answer them offline. But yeah, just to give us an email if something comes to you.
All right. Well, if there aren't any, thank you again for all of your attendance and let us know what we can do to help. So have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much. And we'll see you all really soon. Be well.